Welcome to the Just Show Up show. And this is a show that I decided to make to just show up because I am a chronic overthinker, and that's why, I've had so many things over the years that I've really wanted to share, but then I just end up not doing it. So I decided to name this the Just Show Up show so that I would just show up and stop overthinking it. And the first episode of this show that I want to put out there, I thought, how can I approach this? How can I approach this in a way that it will actually work? Because that's ultimately what I discovered in my creative journey. That I just need to find things that are going to work, So I started out, kind of heavily overthinking everything, burdening myself with, grand expectations of what I want to create. I would dream up all of these amazing visions of stuff that I want to create and how fantastic it's gonna be, and then nothing would happen. Literally nothing would ever happen. And I got so plagued by this feeling, by this heaviness that kind of life produced, because I loved the ideas that I was getting, but then I wouldn't execute any of them. And the other thing is also that now looking back, I can definitely see that I had a lot of idol worship, which I'm gonna get to in a little bit. And what that means is that, it happens so often, and Ira Glass actually talked about this on his podcast, and every creative has referenced that podcast episode on their channels and whatevers. But basically what he's saying is that when we are a young artist and we're just starting out, we have idol worship, and we look at some of these things, that we love so much, like some of these creations, some of these artists, and we're admiring it so much for how good it is. But then it's you don't know how that damn thing was created. Where inside of themselves have they pulled it from, right? How did they get so fucking good at it? And all you see is the end product, and you just don't see the first 10 years of making shit work, or how many times they've showed up until they actually finally started kind of discovering themselves, and everybody goes through that phase of kind of worshiping someone else's work and trying to copy it and kind of trying to avoid seeing themselves and seeing, because when those people are really good at what they're doing, it's because they're natural and they just are who they are. It's all about authenticity at the end of the day. And when we are copying someone else, we're literally doing the wrong thing. We're literally doing the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. So, oh dear Lord, it pains me. It pains me to even get into it, and to look at what I've been doing to myself for more than 10 years. So, but there's a positive to this. The positive is that it is literally never too late. It's really never too late. And when I started out with the artist's way, for me it was oh my god, I can't believe, even after 10 years I still have enough hope to even attempt doing this. Because it's most people would give up after 10 years of struggling and doing everything the wrong way. And I swear to God, I spent, so I went to art school, and at art school what I would do is that I felt so ashamed and embarrassed of not knowing what art is, not really being confident in myself, and I felt the stuff that I really like is just so, unrefined, basic. And I now that I've seen my journey and my development, I also started working a lot with dreams and dream interpretation, and I've had so many dreams where I'm dreaming about making art, and like the end result is just so goddamn basic and simple. And even in my dreams, I have this crazy amount of judgment. Like, I want to be this sophisticated, intellectual, conceptual artist, you know, and it's like, I'm just not. And I have to live with that, you know. If I ever want to be great being myself, I just have to accept that I just am what I am. And I think that's, you know, ultimately what most of our struggle as, you know, blocked creative people is all about. It's about the fact that, you know, it's not that we cannot create. We are able to create. We just don't fucking like what we're making, you know? So it's that fear of making something and then looking at it and being mortified, you know, because again, it's not what you really want to create, you know? It's not that fucking thing that, you know, you admire. And we don't actually have a problem with creativity. What we have a problem with is self-acceptance and self-judgment, and the only answer to that is self-love. So I want to share my journey towards self-acceptance and self-love with you, in the hope that maybe, you know, some of you who are watching this might just be starting out, or maybe some of you are still in the process. You know, it's just like there's no time limit to how long this process is, and there's also no limit to the amount of hope that you still have inside yourself. So maybe your process, you know, like when I look at my process, I'm like, goodness graciousness, like how can something take that fucking long? How can something take that long? Like, how can you be in your own way for 10 years? Like, who does that? You know what I mean? Like, who is so silly to do that? And so anyways, I'm here to share my story because I think that, you know, struggling for that long, it might really help someone. Like maybe, you know, you've just started, and I remember when I just started, I just thought, is this going to work? You know, you open the book and you start reading it and you're like, that's great. Like, you know, there's this Facebook group, that's fantastic, but like, is it gonna work for me? You know, because I'm really, really fucked up. And I think, you know, people who resort in the end to a book that promises that in 12 weeks, you know, you're gonna unblock. Like, it's not like you haven't tried to unblock for like years on end, you know, like in my case, 10 years, I've tried to use my own brain and smarts to figure out ways to, you know, find a way to create. And I remember like every day I would show up, and what I did, my big guilty pleasure is reading. So I would always be in like research mode, like I need to research, you know, I need to learn about this thing. And once you get to the media deprivation week, you really get to see, I mean, what a trickster the mind is, and that curiosity and that need for knowledge is. And it really just is escapism. It's a way to kind of, you know, like stay busy so that you don't potentially get bored. And when I've done my media deprivation week, I've done it like really hardcore. Like I really stuck to it. And another addiction of mine was chatting. Like I love chatting. Yeah, if I could like fill my entire day with chatting to friends. Like I could do that. So once I sent out a message to all of my friends, and I was like, for 1 week, I'm actually not gonna chat. And I was so bored. No reading, no watching of anything, just lounging around, not knowing what to do with myself. And oh my god, I don't think, like, even as a child, I've probably never experienced that in that same degree, you know, because even as a child, you were able to go to the TV or like, I don't know, like entertain yourself. But I think that's what media deprivation week is really about. It's like about coming back to yourself and experiencing what it's like to be bored and what it was like. Because I remember for myself when I was a kid, I was always bored and like always filling my days, and I spent a lot of time by myself because I didn't go to kindergarten. So like I had to fill an entire day for myself, and I was a single child and my parents were at work. So those were long days, and I was always drawing, I was always dancing, like listening to music, going out, like coming up with fucking weird shit. Like I would go and ride my bicycle and play this game where I would close my eyes and like ride my bicycle blind and see which car I'm gonna hit. So yeah, you can definitely get up to some very strange stuff when you are bored. But yeah, definitely media deprivation week. I mean, hello. I feel like that's what really taught me everything in that book. And it is so scary, but oh my god, like, I mean, I just, like, I didn't have anxiety for that. Okay, the first 2 days were really, like, weird, you know, and turbulent, because you get bored and then, like, that energy arises in you and you just want to kind of, like, make it go away, right? But if you stick with it, like day 3, you're like, oh my god, I never want to go back to that life ever again, you know, because you really kind of slow down and like, I don't know, like all of a sudden you have time for everything. And that is the biggest catch, because I feel like when we're talking about creativity, like at least in my case, it was always like this, like, oh, I would think of like a great idea, and then it's like, oh my god, that's gonna take so much time. I definitely don't have that much time. Like that's gonna take like hours and hours and hours of showing up every day. And for some reason, like I just wanted like instant gratification, you know, like I just wanted something quick that I could make. And so that's how I actually started out. So my TAV story goes like this. I tried, so at first I realized like my life is not working. And if you are a creatively suppressed person, you know very well what I'm talking about. Like if you are naturally a very high creative energy person, if you're suppressing that creative energy, that life force in you, you are gonna be a very miserable person. And until you bring in some awareness into that process, you're not gonna understand what the fuck is wrong with your life. So one day, and this was like my marriage at the time, I was married for 8 years, it was just completely collapsing. Like I was just like, I hated everything, you know, and like creative energy and sexual energy, they're like one thing, you know. So I was just blocked on all ends. It was just insane. So I just, you know, like, and for years I would just show up, try to make work, and like get frustrated, be unhappy, and it was just a vicious cycle like that over and over again. So at some point, I don't know what happened to me, but I just decided to stop doing everything that I was doing, and I was like, I really have fucking issues, you know. So I went, and actually I think the one that really kind of like kicked me out of my rhythm was I went to a Chinese doctor because I started having, and this is also very interesting because like when we are suppressed and when we're not feeling well, the body will talk, you know. And my body started, so I was in Taiwan and it's very hot over there, it's a tropical country, and my white pale ass was not made for that kind of stuff. So I would get these insane, like, I mean, I call them heat strokes. They say they're not heat strokes, but I believe they are. I would just not be able to sweat, and like all the heat would just get into my head, and I would just feel horrible. Like every day, if I went out and I like my skin touched the sun for 5 minutes, I would have to sleep for like 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon. And I was like, I can't fucking live like this. And I would feel also like my brain was starting to get dumb. Like I just started feeling dumb. You know, I couldn't think, and that is a fact. Like when you are in a super hot environment, you just can't think. So I went to this Chinese doctor. I went to a couple of them, and then one of them said to me, he was like, your head is so busy. And at the time, Cambridge Analytica was happening, and I was just obsessively reading about Facebook and like how, you know, they're taking all of our data and selling it off, and like, you know, apocalypse. Like, not that none of this stuff is valid, like that stuff is real, but the doctor was like, what does that have to do with you? And I was like, well, fucking everything, you know what I mean? Like, I was, you know, I'm a fucking human citizen of this world during this time. Like, obviously this concerns me, like this is really, really bad, you know. And at the time I was a very active Facebook user. Like now, if you go to my profile, you will see that I've deleted like almost everything. But he was kind of like, he could not understand. He was like, your head is so active. And then somehow he saw that I have, you know, some cuts on my hands, and he was like, oh, what is that? And I was like, oh, well, you know, like we were all self-harming when we were in high school. And like, to me, I know that it's not normal. Like, I know it's not normal, but I was in an art high school, and, you know, like everybody's a little bit melancholic, and I swear to God, it was like a trend. It was like our own way of being popular, in a way of like relating to each other. Like everybody's going through some depression or another with like just being a teenager. I don't know, whatever. Like, so in my mind, it wasn't as big of a deal as it was in his mind. And, but anyways, he was just like he was very intuitive. I think this doctor was a very intuitive guy. Like he somehow saw what I was going through, and he was like, how's your relationship with your mother? And I was like, aren't you a Chinese doctor? Like, aren't you supposed to like just, you know, put some needles in me and like, you know, get over with it? But he had a really good point, and he put me on the spot like that. And he was like, if your relationship with your mother is not good, your root chakra is not gonna be good, you're not gonna feel security and stability in your life, and your creative power isn't gonna be available to you. So that's when I realized, like, okay, you know, I actually really need to start doing something different. I can't continue doing everything the same way and expect different results. And that's when I decided to just drop everything. Like, I literally just, it was like my own way of doing media deprivation. Like, I just dropped everything. I stopped doing everything that I was doing, and I would just show up, and I was like, okay, I'm actually going to focus on healing. I'm going to focus on healing myself, and I'm going to focus on finding ways to creatively unblock, instead of reading about, like, what was I reading before that? Like, I was reading books on like best ways to come up with creative concepts, you know? And the kids, you see, the kids. Anyways, I'm here to tell you things today, and I'm not gonna stop. You see, like, these kids are trying to make me stop doing what I'm doing, but I'm not gonna stop. I'm just gonna do it today, because I've been putting this off for a long time. And what's happening is that I just feel like I need to share this with people, you know? I need to share my story with people, and today I am going to be monk while there is noise outside, and I'm gonna focus on giving you this piece of information. Because I've started also feeling like, you know, now that I've gone through my creative recovery, I started feeling like, okay, well, this is all great, but like there's still that piece of like sharing what I'm doing that is missing. And I'm starting to feel almost like a sense of responsibility to share. And I feel like if I'm not sharing, I'm actually depriving people of something that might help them, you know? Like, if when I joined the Facebook group, for example, like, I didn't see anyone, you know, having a video, or people even sharing very much about their process, you know? Like, people would share occasionally here and there, but it felt like we were a group of, you know, everyone struggling, and like the ones that were doing better or had gone through the process, I felt like didn't really come back, you know, to kind of come and get us, you know. And that's what I'm trying to do here. Like, I'm trying to kind of come back and be like, hey, like, okay, 2 years have passed, and like, I want to tell you about my process and kind of what are some of the things that I've struggled with, you know, and generally kind of share my story with you. So back to the Chinese doc, you know, I decided I'm gonna do this thing, you know, I'm gonna heal myself whatever way I know how to. Up until that point, I was in Zen meditation groups, I was going to Vipassana retreats, like I was already on a spiritual path, but I was like, God, like everything that I'm doing is not working. And that's somehow, I have no idea how the book came into my life, but I found it. I listened to it at first as an audiobook, and then I was like, I originally kind of dismissed it. I wasn't even gonna do it. And then I was like, no, you know what? My birthday's coming up. I'm gonna buy this for myself as a physical book so I can't avoid it. So I bought it. I started reading it. I think I got up to like week 2 or something like that. And I remember in the first week or 2, she says, do not get divorced, do not leave your job, do not leave the country. And I did all those things in 2 months. I was like, oh my God. The second that I started writing those morning pages, I realized my life is not working. And I got into this like emergency mode where I was like, I need to fix this first before I can be creative. And a short disclaimer, I think I did the right thing. And I think she's wrong to tell people not to do that, because sometimes like you might be in a really, really bad situation. And like if I had stayed, I might have unblocked, but the relationship and everything was still toxic. I mean, I'm sure that she has that in mind as well. So she's like, you know, unblock yourself first and then assess your life. Like that's valid. But anyways, in my case, that's what happened. And I was like, I need to leave. I need to, you know, I was in Taiwan. I decided I have to go like leave, like I'm done with this. Like I have to go back to Europe. Then I got to Europe and I was so panicked. Oh my God, I was so panicked. Like new life, new everything, you know, like they say there's like 5 things in life where, you know, that are the biggest stressors, and like I only had like 2 that, you know, like death of a person or like another one, I don't know what it is, but like I was severely stressed, but at the same time I was really, really committed to my spiritual path, which I'm gonna get into in another video. But I would just kind of, you know, pray every day and like still do my morning pages. And my morning pages at that time became like therapy. I was like processing, you know, like every day I would get in there and like write about my feelings, you know, like what are my theories about what went wrong, like where am I healing, what do I still want to work on. Like it was a really, really intense process. And then I landed a job as a flight attendant, and this was funny because like my manifestation powers were starting to kind of pick up a little bit because I was getting a better spiritual connection. And what happened at that time is that I really wanted to leave the country. I wanted to travel more, and I wanted to go to Peru to do ayahuasca. Like that was my 2 things. Like I really badly wanted them. I had no idea how I'm gonna do it, but I knew that that's what I really, really want. I got a job as a flight attendant, and within a couple of months I had enough money to go to Peru. I somehow, everything aligned, you know, like we had a runway closure, so I was even able to get like 20 days off of work, and I went there, and my intention with that was also creative unblocking and like healing, you know. So I had 4 ceremonies, and in these ceremonies I was given so many visions about, you know, creativity and my own self-judgment. Like there were many visions in that big movie, you know, that lasts for like nine hours, I believe. So ayahuasca is like, for those of you who might not know, it's like a psychoactive brew that you take with a shaman, and it's a spiritual ceremony where you get visions, where you communicate to a spirit. Like some of you might be into that, some of you might be like, what the fuck is that? It's all cool. Like it is for whom it is for, and it was definitely for me. And I felt, oh my God, I felt such an intense healing from doing that. But then when I got back to real life, I was like, oh God, now I have to integrate. You know, it's all beautiful visions and everything, but like until you're able to embody that kind of state when you're in a sober state of mind, then you know you haven't really like applied the lessons that you've learned. So it's kind of like learning a lot of lessons and being given a lot of knowledge, but you really have to apply it to your own life. So it took a little while. I got, you know, kind of traveling a lot, and I had that, like, I knew that the artist way was still there, but I had some resistance. Like I didn't really want to pick it up because I was like, oh God, like once I pick it up then it's like a real commitment and an involvement. And besides that one, I was also reading Alejandro Jodorowsky, the director who made The Holy Mountain. I was reading his book on it's called Psychomagic, and basically he gives different rituals for different kind of emotional blockages, because like magic rituals. And the idea is that it's not really about the ritual that you do, it's more about the effort that you put into your own healing. So his ritual had to do with basically the idea is that, like, if your parents did not give you enough attention when you were little, then you know you don't allow yourself time to pursue certain things, so you're very scattered. So when the pandemic hit, I had already prepared the stuff that I needed for this ritual, but when the pandemic hit, what happened is that I just thought it's gonna be only 2 months, you know, and I was like, oh my God, like I have so many ideas, I have so many things that I want to do, like how on earth am I gonna do everything? I'm not gonna have enough time. So I made like a long list of everything that I wanted to do, and that's when I started kind of really clearing out. And before that, I've done the KonMari method already, which is like tidying up your life, you know, like kind of looking through everything. Like I was such a scattered person for most of my 20s. I was all over the place, and I could not sit still to be with anything for long enough, you know, to even like allow myself the chance of discovering anything. So that's when I started doing the TAV for the first time. And at the beginning, I was so goddamn scared, you know. I was so scared to look at my past. And you know, I did the ritual also. The ritual involved it was crazy. It involved getting 5 kilos of soil from your place of birth, like next to the hospital where you were born. And I literally carried 5 kilos of soil with me to Dubai, from Croatia to Dubai. And so the ritual says that you need to fast for 18 days, and every day this sounds crazy, but I do think it worked. So you put the soil out on the floor, and then you kneel on it, and you put a bucket of water in front of you, and you submerge your head in the water, and you basically kind of try to choke yourself. I know this sounds insane, but the idea is that when you get out of breath, that you will kind of mentally connect with your, like, what you want the most in life, you know? So you're kind of like removing distractions in a way. And so, and the other thing that you're doing is this, for those 18 days you're like actually committing to something, so it does make sense, you know, like you're actually kind of allowing yourself time to care about something. And I'm gonna make a whole nother video about caring about something, because like I've also done more work in depth on that aspect of like, why was I creatively blocked later on. And I took also a Peruvian medicine, which is called Cambo, and that is the wax from the back of a frog, and basically you scrape it off, and then you make little burns on the skin, and you put the Cambo on it, and you're taking it with a guide, and that one's not psychoactive, but it has 120 peptides in it, and it's kind of like the spirit of the frog. It goes into your body and it knows exactly where it needs to go. So if you have some trapped emotions or trapped trauma that is in your spirit and your soul in your body, it will go to that place and you will purge that thing out. And when I finished, I didn't really feel anything specific, but it was exactly Easter, day of the resurrection, when I had this almost prophetic dream about my creativity and about why I was blocked. But I'm gonna make another video about that. Teaser. But anyways, back to the TAV process. So at the beginning, I started and I finally got into it, and right around the same time, my main question was, how can I find my style, you know? I was like, okay, let's cut all the shit, you know, like when I was doing art school, my most natural thing is drawing. But then I just don't know why, you know, I escaped from that most natural thing and I went off to do other things, you know, like photography, you know, videos. I went off to Korea to study film, and then like I tried to do conceptual art, and oh my god, I mean, I could have not done anything worse to myself. I'm not a conceptual artist. I am a very kind of intuitive, free-thinking type of associative, symbolic, you know, like I was always into surrealism, you know, David Lynch, like those kind of very imaginative things. But the trend at the time was conceptual art, and I'm just not good at it. But then I would kind of try to force myself to become more intellectual and read more books and become smarter, you know, and it just didn't work. It just simply did not work. So this time I was like, okay, let me try to outsmart myself and just simply go back to drawing, you know, like let's go back to that thing that originally got me into art. Like I fucking loved art when I was a little kid, right? Like I that's all I did. All I did all fucking day long was drawing. And I was like, how can I just go back to that same feeling of joy, you know, and just reconnect with that again, you know, like what was it that made me enjoy doing this thing that now brings me so much suffering? It's like I want to do it, but like every time when I try to do it, it's like it just brings me so much pain, you know. So we started, me and Eva, who was my partner doing TAV, we started a challenge together that I saw in a video by Struthless, who is also a fantastic YouTuber, who's making a lot of videos about the creative process, procrastination, and all this kind of stuff. And he said that the greatest thing that, you know, how he unblocked in a way is that he went on a, I think, 100-day draw the same thing challenge. And I was like, that sounds really smart, you know? If every day you have to draw the same thing, then you don't have to think about what you're gonna draw. So we did that, and it was torturous and it was boring because like every day you're drawing the same thing, so you're kind of like, you know, your brain gets really creative and it's like, this is boring, I don't want to draw the same thing every day, I want to make it interesting, right? So I picked my thing was the Cupid. So I would draw a Cupid every day, and I just hated my drawings, most of them. Like some of them I liked, some of them I didn't like, and I noticed that there was this, you know, I was trying to create a process by which I can show up every day and create and not procrastinate and not have this whole internal conflict about showing up, about the results, about being in the mood, you know, because that's most of our problem, right? Like we all need to be in a special mood to create, right? It's like, you know, why is it so different that, you know, when you create, you make it such a big, huge fucking deal, and then when you go and do yoga, for example, like you just show up, you don't care if today it's gonna hurt, you don't care if today, you know, you're gonna pull a muscle, you don't care, like you just come back again next time, right? Like, I mean, not that I'm doing yoga every day, but that's the idea. So we did that, and I noticed, like, you know, I was really trying to show up every day, but there was that pull, you know, like if one day I made something that I really, really liked, and very, very soon I stopped drawing Cupids because I got so bored with it. So then I broke the rules, of course, and I started drawing something else, you know, and like every time, then it became complicated because I would have to come up with what I'm gonna draw today, and then I would have to engage with it, and then I would have to be like, oh, but I don't know how long this is gonna take, how many hours is this gonna take, how many hours do I have? And I had this other thing that I wanted to finish something within one day. I didn't want it to carry over to the next day. And I had all of these strange things inside me, you know, like that are just so fucking hard to understand. It's like, why, you know, what am I battling with? Like, what is my fucking problem, you know? And I mean, seriously, even saying it now, I'm like, what the fuck is my problem? But now I actually know what my problem was. And this is crazy. So we did that for a while. Then I was like, okay, my problem is that I don't like the way that I draw. So I was like, okay, why don't we just go and do, you know, go back to art high school, like what I did, you know, and like, let's go back to learn proper realistic drawing. Maybe that's gonna help me. Then I did like a bunch of Skillshare classes on how to stylize things, you know, and I went into this like whole insanity of like not wanting to draw realistic, because I know that drawing realistic bores the fuck out of me. Like, I'm able to do it, but it's just, I'm just super bored doing it. Like, I don't find it interesting. And then if I draw the way that I know how to draw, then I don't like the way it looks. So I had to kind of reconcile these two things. And one day I had this idea that I'm gonna reach out to an artist that I know, and this is, again, synchronicity. She told me that she had literally done the exact same book that I was working on, drawing on the right side of the brain. And my mind was just blown. I was like, well, this is amazing. Like, can I show you my progress? You know, I think I posted something on my Facebook and she saw it, and that's how we got talking. And I was like, can I just call you and like you give me a critique and you tell me like which direction I should go into, and like I'm gonna show you what I've been working on so far, like since the beginning, you know, of doing TAV. And I told her, you know, like I'm trying to do a fucking recovery and, you know, put myself back on track, you know, to create again. And I showed her like this wide range of like me just drawing the way that I know how to draw, and me you know, drawing realistically. And I was so shocked by what she said. She basically said, well, it's perfect this way. Like, this is so interesting, you know, like you have all of these different ranges and different ways of expressing, like, what's wrong? And that just blew my mind. I was like, she doesn't see anything wrong with this? Like, this is insane. Like, am I the only one who has this problem in my head? I know I sound like a crazy cat lady, but it just is what it is. Fuck it. You know what I mean? But I had to go through this whole process to understand myself, to understand what it is that I like, you know, and to divorce myself from the results, you know. So it's like I had to get to feel what it feels like when I feel like I'm on the right track, you know, and to just be fine, you know, with my way of drawing, to just be okay with that. And that's why I say it's not that we're blocked, we're just simply we just simply don't like what we make, and that's judgment. It's not that we're not creative, we just have judgment. We just have our own preconceptions of how we think the things that we make should look. And the way that you understand that is that once you start sharing, people fucking love it, and you're like, wait, so like it doesn't matter how it looks like the only thing that matters is the energy that it was created with, you know? So when I realized that, I was also very lucky that I found another book that was like the complete opposite of drawing on the right side of the brain. I was like, I started getting more into this, like, you know, intuition and like how do you work with that. And I found this book that has a very similar title but a very different content, and it's called Drawing on Your Intuitive, Making Marks, Discover the Art of Intuitive Drawing. And this is what really changed everything. I started working with this, and I'll make a whole separate video about this, but basically it's just reconnecting with how you draw naturally and understanding that it's more about expression of, you know, channeling something through your soul than it is about how the damn thing looks in the end. So I started doing a couple of these exercises myself, you know, where I would just freestyle. And I was like, you know what, like maybe the way to do it is to go into abstraction. Like, let's just drop all of this formalism and it having to look like anything, and like, why don't I just try to develop a symbolic language whereby, you know, I'm still going to be expressing what I want to be expressing, but I'm not going to use recognizable forms to express that. And that was a really, really fantastic, freeing exercise. I still had some issues with that because I'd be like, but I'm not really saying anything, you know, or like I'd still be missing something. And very quickly after that, I discovered what it is that I've been missing. So I had this secret little dream that I think it must have creeped into my morning pages here and there. But basically it was that I had this longing ever since high school. We would sometimes, as a joke, we would make these little comics, like it was like a group activity, and we would just make fun of stuff. Like it was just ridiculous, like completely unserious, no purpose to it whatsoever, but it was ridiculously fun. And that's what really rocks my boat. Storytelling and self-expression, you know, like soul expression, autobiography. And one day this was like, and again, you know, and I had this distinction between coming up with an idea from your left hemisphere, because the left hemisphere is very logical and it likes to go in there and be like, problem solve, I need a creative idea, creative ideas, take this, yeah. But it doesn't have soul. It doesn't have soul when you do it this way. And you can feel it, like you don't like what you made and it just doesn't feel right. Like it can look so right on paper, but you look at it and you're like, this is fake, you know? So I think what I really longed for this whole time was just that feeling of realness. And right now I found it. I found my feeling of realness, and I know what it is, you know, I know how to make it. And it's like, I think maybe, you know, the reason why I want to share this is that when you go through the process, when you come out at the other end, you might discover something that you would have never expected. Like you might start out with one art form and you might be obsessing about that one art form and be like, God, like, you know, I just want to be a filmmaker, I have to make films. But what if at the end of it, you know, you discover that you don't actually want to make films, you actually want to make comics, you know? Like maybe there's something that is so simple and natural to you and you're actually resisting it and you don't know it, and only by engaging with the process you will discover this. And I feel like that's what happened to me. It's like I had this deep buried dream inside me that I want to make a visual, like, what is it called, graphic novels, let's say it, but like an illustrated story. I would call it an illustrated story because like I'm very visual. Like I love, you know, drawing pictures, but I love it when there's a story to it. Like I really like storytelling, and I never allowed myself to do this. And like now that I'm doing it, I'm showing up every day, I'm writing the story, I'm creating the illustrations, I'm like on fire when I'm making it. I'm so, I mean, I can't even explain to you how much fun I'm having. Like it's just out there. And the other thing is that once you get into alignment, you know, with what it is that you really want to do, like why you want to do this, not on a rational level, but just like to embody it, to feel it, you know, that's when ideas are going to come to you. And the ideas that came to me, I can see, and this is the painful part, it's like the ideas were spreading out on all of those small little drawings that I made over a year, you know, like there was an element in here. And when I, for example, like I made this illustration of this girl, you know, like crying with tear-shaped, heart-shaped tears. And as an illustration, as a one picture drawing, it wasn't enough. It was just like cool, but like weak, you know? It didn't really have substance. It didn't really have enough in there, like, of what I wanted. But then I realized, like, oh my God, you know, like, the reason why all of these things are not working is because I haven't put them together in a story. And now all the small little elements that I've been kind of creating over a year are coming back together. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a story to this, you know? This is part of something. And it's like, if I hadn't done the work of showing up for those small little things, you know, for that small little drawing, I would never discover what I discovered now. And on that note, I'm gonna end the video because I feel like I went into the gist of what I wanted to share with you. I don't want to make it too long, but, you know, please comment. Tell me your stories. Tell me what you're struggling with. Tell me if there was anything in the video that you would like me to talk more about. And keep going, you know? Don't give up. Don't be too hard on yourself. And, you know, it's all gonna be fine in the end, you know? You're gonna come out at the other end. Anyways, that's what I came here to tell you. Stay blessed and have a wonderful day. And I'll see you soon, and I'll read you in the comments. Bye.